son, and dar spouse, and griha house. ठीक है, मैं ये 3 चीजों से आपको अपने आप को डिटैच कर लेता हूँ, चलेगा? Only 3 things? No, he doesn't mean only 3 things. These are symbolic. That means putra stands for all those things which are dependent on you, people or positions or even the projects in the office. All these things, I have so many projects when I was working in the corporate. Some projects are dependent on you because you may be the group leader for that, project leader, and so projects may be dependent on you, objects for their maintenance, and people and relationships. All those things which are dependent on you are identified, are symbolized by putra. Dara, griha, all those things on which you are dependent. And griha is house. So it doesn't mean that you only detach yourself from the house. It stands for all our possessions. All our possessions. So the detachment has to be from all these things, possessions and all the whole realm of dependencies. So when I say detach yourself even from situations and projects, does it mean I will not do my project in the office? No. The thing is that if the project gets taken away from me and a more able leader comes and takes it up, I should be happy to say, okay, take it over from me. When I get attached to it, you can see how much of sorrow and hatred and jealousy and animosity it creates. Sorrow, in short, it creates within the offices and corporates. You just go and see the world of the corporate from the inside. This is my project. I have to complete it. This is my team. It's all a symbol of, a symptom of attachment. Attachment brings sorrow. Take any situation. Corporate situation, project dependencies on attachment to family positions, and suppose I have a attachment to some vision, to some desire. Oh, I have to visit Australia. Suppose I have this, and every time somebody in my neighborhood is going to Australia, I'm going to eat my heart out and be miserable. And every time I see my finances and say, oh, I don't have enough to go to Australia, again I'll be miserable. Every time I look at pictures of Australia, why? Why create so much misery for myself? Because I have got this attachment कि अब मुझे Australia देखना है. Australia is just a symbol. It could be any little desire that we get attached to. So here when I say attachments, just like Bhagwan, he is saying putra, dara, griha, adi. And the rest, adishu, griha, adishu, adi. All, that's why he says all the rest. Our dependence can be on anything. So let the mind figure out in our hours of reflection, in our quietness, what is it that is upsetting me? What are the kinds of desires and attachments that I entertain in my mind, which trigger off unhappiness? Let me find that out. That's the only way to tackle it. So when all these things are taken away from us, we feel that there is a lack of importance. हमारी importance कम हो गई. ये तो कुछ भी नहीं है. We think our own entire identity is stripped of us. So that is what causes sorrow. And of course we are going to live among these things and with these things, but without feeling insecure or incomplete or feeling possessive about any of these things. And feeling that, oh, it's very hard for me, I just cannot live without any of these things. Detect our own dependencies. To detect it, we have to find out what is it that I am dependent on. And you know something, the worst part is that all our dependencies and attachments are disguised as love. So we think that this is love, and it's a disguise. Actually, it's a dependency. And therefore, we are unable to ferret it out from the mind. Remember, if the problem is psychological, the solution will also be in the mind. It will be at the thought level. So outwardly, we don't have to give up anything. Psychological attachment, psychological detachment. दोनों mind level पर करना है, अपने आप करना है, अंदर से करना है. In the world, we have to live very much among the duties that we have to perform and with the duties. Now, one of the Swamis, Ram Sukdas ji, said that what is the solution? इसका उपाय क्या है? मैं हर चीज के साथ जीना चाहता हूँ लेकिन अटैच हो जाता हूँ. So he said solution simple है. आप क्या करो, हर चीज में अपनी ड्यूटी ऐसे करो as if you are serving. Serve without expecting. Go on serving and do not expect sukha from any of these vastu, vyakti, paristiti, people, circumstances, relationships. And say, okay, I'm just serving, my job is done. Not expecting any sukha. Sukha. You know, this hunting for sukha is the root of all the dukkha in the world. The sooner we understand these two mischievous opposites, the sooner we will be actually free from their devious games, from their mischief. That's why Khalil Gibran or Gibran, however you pronounce it, I'm sure you've heard of him. He is a Lebanese American poet who had a very strong Islamic Sufi influence in his literature. Khalil Gibran, many of you have read it. Allow me to quote a few lines from him which go very well with Putradara Grihadishu become Anabhishwangaha, detached from. He says, Khalil Gibran says, let there be spaces. Let there be spaces in your togetherness. Of course, we are together with our spouse and children and loved ones. Let there be spaces in your togetherness and let the winds of heavens dance between you. Do not get so close that there is suffocation. In the name of love. Love one another, but make not a bondage of love. Make not a bondage of love. Let it rather be a sea between the shores of your love, of your souls. Sing and dance together. Of course, the whole family relationships are about caring and love and song and dance. He says, sing and dance together and be joyous. But let each one of you be alone. Be alone in our spiritual growth. Nobody can help us. We have to be alone. Even as the strings of a lute is a stringed instrument, are alone. Every string on the lute, let's say like a guitar, every string on the guitar is alone, and yet they quiver with the same music. They quiver with the same music, but the strings are apart. So stand together but not too close, because the pillars of a temple, even the pillars of a temple stand apart. And the oak tree and the cypress tree, they grow not in each other's shadow. So we will not be able to grow spiritually if we are too close to any of these dependencies and relationships, because he says very clearly the oak tree and the cypress tree cannot grow in each other's shadow, which means our spiritual life will be overshadowed, will be stifled, which it is because we are so intensely involved. So once again, let me remind everyone about the 3D filter. When I say dispassion and vairagyam and asakti, which are the words for detachment, we have to see that it is not the D of disinterest. Disinterest means I don't care. No, it doesn't mean I don't care. Desperation, it means I will die without you people. No, it's not the D of desperation. It is the detachment which says, I am complete. I will still complete all my duties along with you. I will serve everyone, and yet I will not keep hankering for sukha to come from any of these people, objects or situations from outside. My sukha will not come from them. This is detachment. The 3D filter. We keep reminding, because they get merged into each other and say, "Abhi mujhe detachment mein karna kya hai? Shall I just walk away?" No, not any of that. And then he says in the second line, verse number 10, chapter 13, Bhagavan says, Nityam cha samachittatvam. Nityam, always you are going to be sama, equanimous in your chitta, in your inner world. Samachittatvam ishtanishto papattishu, in all circumstances. Is it possible to remain still and equanimous in favorable as well as unfavorable circumstances? How? How is it possible? Simple. We build a small wall of vivek around our inner world. We build a small wall of vivek in our inner world. What is Vivek? Vivek is the simple thought of what is Sat, what is Asat, distinguishing in my mind. Vivek means separating, distinguishing Sat from Asat. In every situation, we can do that and we will be free. So that wall of Vivek is what we need to protect ourselves from the vicissitudes of the world. How did this Samachit Tattvam, how was this Samachit Tattva express itself in Bhagwan Ram? We all know he was ready to get anointed as the king of Ayodhya, and he was going to be crowned and Rajya Abhishek hone wala tha, and he said okay. He was not over the moon with excitement, and the very next moment he was told, oops, sorry, there's a small change of plans. Instead of Rajya Abhishek, you have to go to the forest for 14 years. What did he do? If you read the Ramayana and you see the beauty of how he said okay. In both cases he just said okay, I'm fine. Whatever the kingdom, my parents and my praja requires me to do, I serve. I'm here to serve. I'm okay. I'll take care of myself. I'm okay is the biggest statement that Ram walked around with, and therefore there was Ishta Anishto Papatsishu. Ishta Anishta dono mein he was equanimous. And in chapter 2, Krishna has also reminded us that Yam hina vyathayante te purusham purusharshabha. He is the man among men, the most honorable man among men, who is sama dukkha sukham dhiram, who has the fortitude to be sama, equanimous in dukkha sukha both. So amritatvaya kalpate, this is from chapter 2. Amritatvaya, he is the one who will attain moksha, amritatva. So he has also reminded us, Bhagavan Krishna in 2nd chapter, 48th verse, that Siddha Siddho Samo Bhutva. Siddhi or Asiddhi, success and failure, ups and downs, success and failure, man, apman, respect, disrespect, attention, no attention, gain or loss, in all these situations, which is nisht or anisht, favorable, unfavorable, he said in the 2nd chapter, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. If you are Samatvam, that is the only yoga which is worth calling yoga. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. The highest definition of yoga is Samatvam. Now, in order to attain this kind of a state of mind, I have to know two things. What is Brahma? What is my nature? And what is the nature of Jagat? Isn't it? I have to sort out a few things in my mind before I settle down into a Samatvam. Okay? So what is the nature of Brahma? Let's sort it out. Brahma, we all know, is changeless, Sanatan, Nitya. It's also eternal. It is changeless and motionless. It is sthir. Therefore, in all those moments in our lives when we have sat very, very quietly, in quiet contemplation, or just sitting by a tree in nature, you know, when we go far away in the forest or some deep woods or a beautiful garden, and we just want to sit there for a long time, or the top of a small hill that we climb up. In that silence, in that quietness, the mind is almost motionless, almost. Therefore, at that time we are closest to the nature of that tattva which is always motionless, that tattva, avyayam. That is the nature of Brahma. So in those moments, we are closest to God. When our mind is not overworking, not running here and there, not scattered, not agitated, and not involved with ab kya karna hai, tab kya karna hai, sansar mein. The quietness of sthirta of the mind is the closest to the asthirta of Brahman. Okay, so I have understood the nature of Brahma. What is the nature of this Jagat, this sansar, this world? The very nature of this world we are very much aware. It consists of all the opposites which drag us here and there. One opposite to other opposite we are being dragged. What are these opposites? Raga and Dvesha, attraction and revulsion, Ninda Stuti, praise and blame, success and failure, respect, dishonor. Everything in this sansar, it comes in pairs and it is dragging us here and there. Don't identify with any of this. Now we know the nature of Brahma, always unchanging, and Jagat, always changing. With this Vivek in the mind, with this we fortify ourselves, or fortify meaning make a fortress, like a wall around in the mind, to say, okay, now I'm clear, so why should I be disturbed? So there's this little anecdote about Chinmaya ji. Chinmaya ji was traveling to the US, where he was felicitated with a citation for peace. He was actually given a beautiful, I forget by which organization or university, they gave him a citation for peace. So they were carrying that citation, and as they reached their hotel room in the evening, they discovered that the Yuva volunteers, around the Swamiji to take care of all his personal things and taxi bookings and this and that. There are a lot of Yuva volunteers, young brahmacharis or volunteers. Suddenly they discovered that these Yuva volunteers, these young men, had forgotten the citation in a suitcase, and that suitcase was left behind in the taxi. So it was lost. What do you think was the response of Chinmaya ji? And it is written down in the anecdotes and stories. His first response was to these young boys, do you have enough clothes to wear? Because that suitcase had clothes for the winter, and we Indians are not used to the different climatic conditions. So he said, do you have enough clothes? That's all. A person who is felicitated with such a high honor in a foreign country would really be highly excited and proud about it. No pride, no excitement, okay. It was lost, okay. Just like Rama Buddhi. Ram जैसी वृत्ति होती है ना, वैसी वृत्ति अगर हो, and होती भी है किसी की, that is what is said to be Nityam cha Samachittatvam in the second line, verse number 10. So does it mean that those who are devotees of Bhagavan, do you think that sorrow will not come to them? I have asked this again and again because this is a misconception and misunderstanding that many people have, that yes, I am going to be a devotee of God and sorrow will not touch me. So the correction is, yes, sorrow will not touch you, because you will have Vivek to say that, oh, this is not sorrow, this is just a mishap, it's just an accident, it's just something that happens to Jagat. So, but the wisdom which will come will protect you from sorrow. It doesn't mean sorrow will not come. Just like Ramakrishna ji, he is of course the biggest devotee of, a staunch devotee of Ma Kali, but he was afflicted by cancer, and people would come to him and ask him, how are you? And he would say, I'm fine. They would say, what about your sickness? He said, oh, that's for the body. My body, yeah, the cancer is taking its own course. I'm okay. The affliction of the body was not transformed into a misery of the mind. There's a big difference between the two. Yes, the body will suffer. That's the nature of matter. Any matter has to disintegrate and get disease and die. So he had understood this was the Vivek. This was the Vivek he had, and so he said, I will not allow the pain, of course there is pain, to become suffering of the mind, and that choice is mine. We all have that same choice. We all have that same choice कि दुनिया में हमारे मन का कभी कुछ होगा, हो सकता है कभी मन का न भी हो. This is all things happening outside. These are circumstances changing outside. Can I adopt all of them as the suffering and agitation of my mind? That's a choice I will exercise. I want my freedom from sorrow, or I don't. That choice is ours. So now, Chinmaya ji used to say that this entire world, of course, the Jagat will have all the opposites of Rag and Dvesh and hatred and love and Jay and Parajay, and some people will praise you to the high heavens, the next day they will criticize you. This happens all the time. Ninda Stuti, as they call it. In all circumstances, he said, look, Chinmaya ji used to say, look, the problem is not of sansar. Problem is not of the world. The problem is of our faulty connection with them. Our faulty connection with them is what? I demand good things, I demand favorable circumstances, and I resist everything that is unfavorable to my mind. Now this demand and resistance is what is the faulty connection. to the Jagat. Jagat is as it is. Nothing changes. That it works by the law of the universe. So he says, neither resist nor start grabbing things of this world. Why? Because everything is passing. Agama pa, anityaha, सब अनित्य है, वो भी चलता है और आगे चलता रहेगा. It will pass, temporary. Everything is temporary. So the only advice that can be given to people like Arjun and to us is, look, vairagya is a big word. Become asakta is a big word. Asakti, detachment, dispassion, big words. Just do one thing. Just be careful that you are not running helter-skelter after the attractions of the senses. Indriyartheshu vairagyam. That was in the 9th verse. So why not? Because this vivek in the mind, which has become a wall, by now it should become a wall around the inner sanctum. The inner sanctum of my mind is mine. I cannot let anyone or any situation or any person, any stranger or any relative touch it and disturb it. It is my sanctum. It's my altar. It's where I meditate. It's where I retreat for my quiet time. It's where I retreat for my silence and reflection upon God. That sanctum no one can touch. If you create a wall like that, then you will realize, the nature of the waves in the ocean is to rise and fall anyway. They will be rising and falling. But if I am a little boat on the ocean, then I will be bobbed up and down and rocked like crazy. But if I am a lighthouse, the same waves in the same ocean will crash against me, and the lighthouse, if I become the lighthouse, it will not deter me from my goal, my action, my emotions are not going to be shaken. So become the lighthouse and not a little boat bobbing up and down on the waves of Bhavasagar, of the ocean of Sansar. That's why even Jesus Christ had said, we have recently celebrated Easter, where he said on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus Christ said, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. By meek, he doesn't mean cowardly, he doesn't mean weak. He means the people who have anahankaraha. They are not carrying their ego around with them. They are samachitta, they are okay, whatever the world gives them. They are adambitvam, they are not trying to exploit other people or exhibit their greatness or be hypocritical. Adambitvam, ahankara, anahankara, amanitvam, samachittatvam. These are the people Jesus Christ called meek, not cowardly. That word meek should not be misinterpreted. He said blessed are the meek, because they will inherit the earth, which means they are the ones who will finally be victorious, because they don't have a dependence. Asakti to sansar is, when we are attached to sansar, the hardest thing is what? Hardest thing is to find God. Because all the attachments to sansar brings kama, krodha, etc. So how can I find God? So Jesus also said later on, blessed are the pure in heart. All the kama, krodha, mad, lobha, moha comes from attachment to sansar. But those who are pure in heart, those who don't have all these things, for they shall see God. देखा, उन्होंने भी ये कह दिया that only when you're clear of all this can you even have a vision of God. God will not even come to, of course he's always there, but there will be no eye-to-eye contact with God. He says they shall see God if they are pure in heart. That does it mean that Arjun should not fight in this battle because the battle is about violence and killing? And no, not at all. That's his duty. So if I'm in the corporate and if I have to give certain commands and make sure that the subordinates are doing what they need to do, all my duties I will have to complete, but without rag and dvesha. Only then my heart is pure, and only then the God's light shines through it. So a small example is that of Field Marshal Manekshaw. Everyone knows about him. So in the 1972 war in Bangladesh, when India, 71 or 72, when India defeated Pakistan, there were many prisoners of war who were taken, so in Bangladesh, on the border. So the prisoners of war were put in a camp. So in the evening, Field Marshal Manekshaw went to their camp and he said, are you okay? Do you have enough water? Are there too many mosquitoes around here? Shall we make some arrangement if this place is too ridden by mosquitoes? And the prisoners of war, they were just simple soldiers from the Pakistani side. And they looked at him, and this is told by Manekshaw himself, this story, in one of his interviews. They just looked at him and they said, Janab, आप में और उनमें, हमारे हुक्मरान में, यही तो फर्क है. This is the only difference between you, sir, and my leaders. That's what the soldiers told Manekshaw. Why? Because Field Marshal Manekshaw was just completing a project which had to be done, and he carried no hatred in the heart for it. If he had carried hatred in the heart, he would be destroying his karma. Same way with Gandhiji. He said that, yes, we have to get rid of imperialism. Yes, you want to get rid of something, but he never advocated hatred. Hatred for the British, he never advocated. So the thing is, the trick from these two lessons, these two examples, the trick we have to learn is, we have to be in the world and complete all our duties. Field Marshal Manekshaw has to fight his battles, Gandhiji has to do his nationalism bit, we have to do all the duties we have been given. Nobody is escaping the duties. But in doing these duties, we do it as a service and do it without hatred. Because in doing these duties, we will come with resistance. In a war like India-Bangladesh war, Pakistan and India war, of course there was violence. But that is at the battleground level, let's call it. अर्जुन को भी यही समझाना है, ये battleground level पर है. There is no violence in your heart, my dear. That will spoil your whole karma. Therefore, all these virtues have to be cultivated. And if we cultivate them, guess what? It's not only our own lives that we will change. We change the lives of people around us. We will notice it. The lives of people around us has also changed. That's why, once again, I'm going to quote Jesus Christ. What was he referring to? For example, when I talk about vairagyam, dispassion, anahankara, absence of egoism, and asakti, non-attachment, and nityam, samachittattvam, even-mindedness in all situations, Bhagwan, God, Jesus Christ said, again in the Sermon on the Mount, he said, neither do men light a candle and put it in the bushel. He said, if you light a candle, you don't put it in the bush, but you put it on a candlestick. Why? And it will give light unto all the others in the house, so that all around us are lit by the light of that wisdom, that knowledge, that spirituality, or that change, whatever little change that comes in us with vivek. Vivek is, again, sat asat ka distinction. When we carry that vivek and vairagya as our ornament around us in our personality, everything around us changes. That's what Christ said, and he said it gives light unto all those are in the house, all that are in the house. How do I attain these beautiful qualities? How? And therefore, the knowledge section is going to begin after the 11th, 12th verse. So in the 11th verse, Bhagwan only announces how we can attain these beautiful traits. He says, 11, Mai chananya yogena bhaktiravyabicharini vivikta desha sevitvam aratirjana samsadi. If you have unwavering devotion towards me, Mai chananya yogena, then by the yoga, by this bhakti, abhicharini, unswerving bhakti, you can reach me. And he says, gives another method, which is in the second line. He says, okay, if you find difficult to talk about reaching God, why don't you do one thing? Vivikta desha sevitvam. Look for a solitary place. Doesn't mean you run away from crowds again. Look for a solitary place, and he adds again to that, he says, arati jana samsadi. Avoid the company of people. Now, we are not saying all people. Of course, we must keep the company of satsangis, those who are looking for the same truth, or of swamis, or of rishis, or munis, or learned people, wise people. In their company, in fact, we gain asangati. Asangati means detachment from company, because they don't attach us to themselves emotionally. We'll see this next time what he means actually by look for solitary places and avoid the company of men. Not to be taken literally, there is a hidden meaning there, and how we can achieve it, we'll see tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Oh, what happened? File format not supported. Okay, so and the others who were wishing to chant are not in this group. Rishina has also taken leave. Do you want to chant? Yes, I think Vijaya ji is there, so why not? Vijay ji was saying that you missed verses 10 to 20, na? In between. हाँ जी, हाँ, not at all. बोलिए, आपकी तबीयत ठीक है? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Yes.